Okay, so tonight what we're going to talk about is what we call the EPOC effect. Does anybody know what EPOC stands for? I'll give you the initials. EPOC.
Energy producing, I have no idea.
Really close, actually. It is a way of how we use our energy. It's actually called exercise post-oxygen consumption. So if you open up your books, there's a little place. It's on page 11. Down towards the very bottom, and it says the EPOC effect. So that's what we're talking about. And again, I'm going to email you guys the notes from this so that you guys have them. But when we talk about the EPOC effect, you'll better understand why we do HIIT training. How many of you guys have ever worked on a car before? Yeah?
A little bit.
Okay. Like, have you ever found like there's like a rusty like screw that you cannot get out? Do you know how to get that out?
WD-40.
WD-40 works sometimes, but it's a really old car.
Coca-Cola.
I've heard Coke works really well.
That's on a battery.
Yeah, that's on a battery too. Anybody else? Anybody else know? Heat, extreme heat, is going to melt away that rust. Okay?
Just like on a container.
Yeah.
Hot water.
Hot water on a container. You know when you cannot unscrew that lid, what do? You heat that sucker up, and then you can unscrew it. So when we have fat molded onto our bodies, it's kind of like that rusty screw that just doesn't want to come off of us, right? And it's like you do every single thing that you can. You're working with just your typical exercise. Like before you guys came in here, had you ever really done HIIT exercise? A couple of you had, but some of you hadn't. What would you think of, if I want to lose weight, what am I going to do? What's the first thing most people think of?
Cardio.
Cardio, go hit a treadmill, right? I'm going to go for like 2 hours. And I'm going to be like, I'm going to like lean on down. It's going to be perfect. And then they start cutting carbohydrates and cutting out fats. Okay? Those things aren't working for us. So we need to give you guys a tool, just like we're going to give you that blowtorch, and it's called the EPOC effect, EPOC, exercise post-oxygen consumption. So when you're exercising at a really high volume, so when we're doing your HIIT exercises, do you guys all get really close to those peak minutes? Even though it's a very, very short period of time, or now when you're doing some of your cardio or some of your other training, you're getting into that peak heart rate zones, right? That's your higher end. So we talked a lot about heart rates last week, and to get that peak zone, you have to be at what percent of your VO2 max? 85. So we're looking at 85% up to 100%. So that really high place up there. So when you're up in that area, a lot of byproducts happen. So think of when you have exercised really hard. Think about the very first time you guys were in this class. What did you feel like the next morning? Sore? Did you?
Great.
You felt great, kind of like this like energy, right?
Yeah.
But did you get out of bed and you're like, oh my gosh, something hurts? Lactic acid. Lactic acid is one of the byproducts of when you get up into that VO2 max. It's also, lactic acid is also a byproduct of when you're working your muscles really, really hard. So you're lifting weights. That's another byproduct of it. So there's some other things. Now we were talking about cars a second ago. And I said, have you ever worked on a car? Have you ever heard of nitrous oxide? What does nitrous oxide do?
Makes you go fast.
Fast, baby, really fast. Well, it's not nitrous oxide that's a byproduct. It's called nitric oxide. So that's one of the other big byproducts of when you get your body into that really high VO2 max. That nitric oxide, it has to do a lot with kind of like the communication in our bodies. It's what helps our bodies communicate and say, okay, we need to send these different things to these different areas. Nitric oxide helps with that. The other thing that it does is it helps the release of hormones. And these are your human growth hormones. So if I have a whole lot of lactic acid in my body, I've got a whole lot of nitric oxide in my body, what else happens when you exercise really hard? Anybody know? What goes up? How do you feel right now? Energized? You feel pretty good? You probably got a little bit of adrenaline rush. Somebody said the next day they felt awesome. So that's up there too. Testosterone is another byproduct of working out and getting up into that high VO2 max. So if I have an excess of this, my body wants to come back to a normal place, that playing field down here. So I'm going to be working a little bit harder, exercise, post, oxygen consumption. Afterwards, after I've been way up here, I'm up here. It's got to bring my body down to this level playing field. So it's going to work a lot harder.
Is that why they say you burn calories after you continue to burn calories?
Absolutely. Laura, I'm going to pass one to you. And if you can just pass them down the line there. Ooh, that's a nice sweaty butt.
I have an extra one.
Everybody get one? And aren't these HIIT exercises kind of fun? You know exactly what you're going to get. You can make it a little bit harder. You can make it easier. You can make it where you need it. I mean, if you've got a major injury, you can still sit on a chair and you can still get a workout in. They're simple exercises that you can do. So it's kind of a fun factor that goes along with it. All right, so we're going to work, we're going to kind of go through some of these examples. So again, this is going to be emailed to you, but you're welcome to take this and just kind of slip it in your book. So the first one, moderate exercise. This is a steady state. So give me some examples of some steady state exercise.
Hike.
A hike,
Treadmill.
walking on a treadmill,
A simple bike ride.
simple bike ride. Sometimes, you know, some aerobic classes, they keep you at a pretty steady state. They don't really ever get you way peaked up here, you know, do the peaks and valleys. You're more just kind of a steady cardio. So in 1 hour, we're just using, for example, and this is very typical, you're going to burn about 300 calories during that exercise session. And that's working again at a moderate pace. Now, if you were doing like a kickbox class where you are working really hard, you're probably going to burn like 400 to 450 calories. That's more at a higher pace.
What about if you're doing weights, where you're not, you're doing weights,
Yep.
you're not really getting cardio? Is that the same?
We'll talk about that in a second because that's a really, really, really good question. So let's table it for just a moment because we're going to come back to it. So during your exercise, you're going to burn about 300 calories. Calories, EPOC, so after your exercise, you're going to burn about an additional 40. And that's based on a calculation of about 10 calories burned per hour up to a maximum of just 4 hours afterwards. Okay, so say you go out for a hike, yeah, you're going to continue to burn a little bit afterwards to bring your body back down to that steady state. You never really got it up here. Now, say you went hiking and you did like a great big huge ridge and you had to climb a bunch of steps. That's going to be harder. That's going to be more high intensity. So you're going to burn a little bit more. So the next one, so let's look at the total, 340 calories burnt for that steady state cardio. Okay? Resistance-based interval training. So what's resistance-based exercise or interval training? Weights. So this is what like a lot of my classes are. So I'm going to hit you with some strength training with some resistance, and then I'm going to give you a cardio burst. Then I go back to resistance, weight training, cardio burst. So you're kind of going back and forth. Interval means 2 different exercises. One typically is going to challenge your heart rate more. The other one's not going to challenge your heart rate as much, but it's going to challenge your muscles a little bit more. Okay? So during that hour session, how many calories are going to be burnt? What does it say? About 300. Notice the time. Did the time go down?
Mm-hmm.
By 15 minutes. So we're only working out for 45 minutes and you're still going to burn the same amount of calories. There's your resistance training. Okay? So after exercise, this is a pretty cool number. 240 calories, and that's based on an additional 10 calories burned for the next 24 hours. Cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many total calories?
540.
540 calories for 15 minutes less of working out. Pretty awesome, right? Okay, so now I'm going to just skip before we go down to the bottom one. Now, if I am just lifting weights, okay, you're doing some pretty heavy strength training. Any ideas of how many calories you would burn, say, in an hour?
240.
Maybe. Really, it's going to be about under 200. You really don't burn that many calories while you're actually weightlifting. Why? Because you're doing your, say bicep curls. I'm going to do bicep curls. I'm going to work really, really hard for about 10 seconds, and I'm going to rest a good 20 to 30 seconds before I pick it up again. So I'm actually resting more than what I'm working. Now, do I have a lot of lactic acid buildup after that? Mm-hmm. Do I get a lot of testosterone? Mm-hmm. Do I get a lot of those feel-good, happy hormones? Mm-hmm, I do. So I am going to burn more calories actually after that workout than during your workout. Does that help answer that question? So your EPOC effect there is actually going to be higher than what your actual calorie burn while you're doing that session. So that's where Fitbits, unfortunately, this is one of the downfalls because they really can't measure that because it's based off of heart rate. It's not based off of what your body has to do in order to bring it back to that equilibrium. Okay, so now let's look at that bottom example. And this is resistance-based anaerobic threshold interval training. All right, so when we were doing those figure eights, how many of you got out of breath? To the point where you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to stop, otherwise I'm gonna like pass out, right? Okay, did you go into the anaerobic threshold, meaning without oxygen? Yes. Those skiva squats where you were squatting down, lifting up, squatting down, lifting up. Were you getting tired? Did you find that your form wasn't nearly as good at the very last one as the very first one? Did you get into that anaerobic threshold? Yes. Were you using resistance-based training? Yes. We used resistance bands, you know, these guys here on the bikes. But what other type of resistance did you use? Your body weight. Gosh dang it, don't we weigh a lot? Okay, so that's where that resistance training comes from. So we're going to take it down to 20 minutes, which is what we did tonight, right? Typically, and I know your Fitbit's going to say a little bit otherwise, but typically you can burn up to 300 calories if you are working at your peak. So I want to really push you up towards that 90, almost to the 95 point. Now, I also give you guys 15 seconds of rest in your interval training, don't I? So I go 45 seconds of work, 15 seconds of rest, and then we do it again, 7 rounds. What if I were to take out that 15 seconds? Made you go hard for 7 straight minutes. Could you do it? You could. You could. Would it be tough? Would that heart rate stay up here a lot higher? I mean, it would just continue to build. Now, I'd still give you at least a minute break between that 7 minutes, but that 15 seconds that I let you rest actually pulls your heart rate back down so that you guys can be successful. Okay? So if you're, as you move on and you get stronger, maybe start taking your intervals to 50 seconds and 10 seconds of rest. Maybe the next week go 55 seconds of work, 5 seconds, just enough time to just switch exercises. That's what's gonna get that calorie burn up a lot higher than what you're doing right now in that session, okay? So let's look at the EPOC effect. What number is that? 360 calories. That's based off of an average of 15 calories per hour for the next 24 hours for less than half of the time. What's the total calorie burn there? 710 calories burned over a 24-hour period for 20 minutes of work compared to 340 for 1 hour of work. Can you find 20 minutes in the day? That's what the EPOC effect is for, okay? That's why I want to push you guys in those HIIT trainings. You hear me coaching you. Come on, guys, you can do it. You've got 10 more seconds. Give me everything you've got. If you can start saying that in your head and coaching yourself, like, come on, I've got this. I know I can do it. I can push harder for just 15 more seconds. You're going to get a little bit higher into that anaerobic threshold, which is going to push your calorie burn afterwards even higher. Wouldn't you rather spend 20 minutes kicking your ass than 2 hours? I mean, literally, okay, if I double that number, 340, what's that? 680 calories. That's 2 hours compared to 20 minutes, and I still haven't burned the same amount of calories. I am lighting a blowtorch under your butt and helping you burn that fat off. At the same time, because we're adding resistance training to it using mostly your body weight, but we use resistance bands sometimes and we use dumbbells sometimes, we're also sculpting and building that muscle.
So can you do this every day?
No. Why do I have you doing it 3 times a week? It takes you a full 24 hours to recover. You need that time. You need that rest.
So you just say do it 3 times a week
Suggest 3 times a week, absolutely.
and do something?
And do something in between. That's where, yes, you do need some of your steady state cardio. We're going for a hike. Why do I have you doing 3 HIIT trainings a week and 3 cardio sessions a week? That's why. Because you need that break in between. So don't try to bulk those 3 HIIT sessions like, day after day. You need that rest to recover. You need that rest.
So how can I do cardio when I'm not supposed to be on this foot at all?
Well, when you have injuries, sometimes you really have to modify and you have to take a step back. I think we've all been there at some point in time where we've been told by a physician that, you know what, you need to back off a little bit and you need to listen to that. And you just modify. And then when you're cleared to come back, then you can come back slowly, but you're going to come back faster.
There was a workout, you posted it too, I think, I was sitting in a chair.
Yep.
No?
No?
You posted it, somebody posted it, I saved it. I'll
mhm.
I'll
Yeah.
try to get it and put it in our.
I think I saw that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of those different